And and we are live. Thank you so very much for joining me, Dr. Stephanie Faubion. You have a CV that is huge, so I know that we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to abridge it and race through it as fast as I possibly can. You are a professor of medicine, you're a medical director at the Menopause Society, you're the Penny and Bill George Director of the Centre for Women's Health at the prestigious Mayo Clinic. You do research, you see patients, and you have specific interests in the factors that influence menopause, POI and early menopause, and sexual health and cancer. And you are one of the world's leading and most respected brains when it comes to menopause. So thank you very much for joining me here on Menopause Masterminds for the Menopause Research and Education Fund. I know we don't have time, so I'm going to literally leap into this. And we do live, as you may have noticed, in an era of mixed messaging and confusing messages that are coming out there who sometimes don't quite match the evidence that is being produced. People are angry, they're confused. How do we bring us back to a sort of a more balanced position where messages can get out that are actually accurately evidence-based?
I thank you for that question. I think it's a wonderful question. I don't think there's an easy solution, but it is very confusing out there right now. And I think what we've seen is the pendulum has swung from hormone therapy is great and it's used for everything to hormone therapy is used for nothing because it's too dangerous to use at all. And now the pendulum hasn't come back to the middle. It's gone all the way back the other way to it's a fountain of youth. It's going to make you live longer, et cetera. And so I I see the history. I think there's a number of factors that have gotten us to where we are, including the fact that women in this age group are powerful. They're employed, they have money to spend, and the market decided that there was a gap, which there was because there weren't a lot of solutions available to women at this time. And so it's been filled by a lot of things. Some of them are valuable and evidence based, and some of them may not add that much value to women, and are not evidence based. So, how is the consumer to help to figure this out? I think that's a wonderful question. I think you need to be careful about your sources of information, and you need to understand what the motives of that person might be. For example, if they're selling supplements on the side, menopause supplements maybe, that then you ought to think about that. They're going to promote their own product, right? And so I think we need to understand what the underlying motivations are, but also there's some really good sources of truth out there. Most of the medical societies related to menopause worldwide are committed to giving women evidence-based care and putting good information out there. So I think be careful about your sources is the main thing, but understand that not everybody has your best interest in mind, and a lot of people have their wallets in mind.
Absolutely. I'll come back to the menowashing in a minute, but you mentioned there the estrogen as a key to longevity, and we're getting a lot of that these days. You know, we're supposed to be putting it on our face. We're supposed to have it forever. We're
Right.
starting it earlier. There's a lot of stuff that's going on and moving around in this area. A lot of that is often based on extrapolating data from premature ovarian
Right.
insufficiency or early menopause, where we know that it is protective in terms of heart disease and dementia for that group. Is it fair to extrapolate or correct to extrapolate that then out over a general population, or is that pulling the bow too far?
It's pulling it too far. I mean, we already have data that starting estrogen in different age groups has vastly different effects. And so we know, for example, that if you go through menopause early or prematurely, say before the age of 40, there is significant benefit and in fact harm if you do not use estrogen up until the average age of menopause, which in the United States and Europe is around 51 to 52 years of age. But you can't extrapolate that to the general population and say, well, if it's good for them, it's good for everybody and it's going to protect brain and bone and heart. It does protect bone. We know that pretty much across the age groups. But for brain and heart, it's very, very different story. And while there may be some benefit for women for their heart, for women starting it in their 50s, even some people debate that. There is absolutely zero benefit to the brain in the 50s. That's clear. It's been studied, it's been looked at, and the WHI very clearly showed potential harm when started at 65 or greater or higher. So I think we cannot extrapolate, data for a 35-year-old going through menopause to women going through at the average age, and women and much later. I had a woman in my office this week who was 20 years past menopause onset and thought she should be taking it for the benefit of these multiple things, and it's just not true. We don't have data for that, and in fact we have data that shows that it doesn't help for that.
Yeah, it's a very difficult minefield that we're walking in there. The other one that there's a lot of hype around is testosterone, which basically we're being told
Right.
is, great for bones, brains, muscles, energy, fatigue, you name it, it's going to help. What do we really know about or what is the science really saying about that now?
So we had a great lecture from Dr. Sue Davis at the Menopause Society last week, and she put all this data out there. We have good data that it helps with sexual functioning in women, and specifically all medical societies now, or the menopause related ones anyway, say that it can be utilized for hypoactive sexual desire disorder in women, and that's after reviewing all causes of low sexual desire. Testosterone is not going to make you like your partner if you don't like your partner. So it's important to remember that there are things that we need to talk about that aren't just hormone related. But will it help with all of these other things? There is absolutely no data in women that it will help with anything other than sexual function. There's no data that it will help with muscle mass or bone density or fatigue or mood or really anything else. Some of that is that we have adequate data that shows it doesn't help, and some of it is that we just have very, very small numbers of women that have been evaluated. So I do think further evaluation of some of these outcomes is necessary, but at this point, we should not be using testosterone for anything other than low sexual desire in women. And it's not government approved in the United States, although it is now, I understand, in the UK, and or there are products available in the UK, New Zealand, Australia, and South Africa, which is fabulous. But we are dealing with male products, and compounding and all of that leads to potential issues when trying to get the dose right. Why is that important? Because if the dose is too high and it's in the male range for women, there can be irreversible side effects like voice lowering, etc. So it's complicated, and we need to take it seriously. This is a drug. It needs careful monitoring, and really the only indication right now is low sexual desire.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because here actually you can get the androfen cream from Australia
Yeah.
privately, but on the NHS you get the sachets. And I can tell you, I've been on testosterone for a number of years now, and every single prescription I've had has come with the instructions for men on it. And I'm thinking, okay,
Oh,
well, at least I know what to do. But if any other woman who's picking it up is really in trouble. It's yeah,
wow.
we need a lot of
Okay, we
education out
have a
there.
ways to go yet then.
Yeah, we do. True. But then again, I am a study of one. Non-hormonal treatments. Now, we've got a couple of
Yeah.
those that you've had one recently approved, I believe, in the US, and
Yes.
one that was a Pesolinish that was approved before. Now, every time these pop up, there are a lot of people who get very, very angry at their existence, and which astounds me because I just don't know why you wouldn't want to offer people as many options as you could give them, especially if they can't take HRT. But a lot of the criticisms of that come down to, well, they don't treat all of the things that come with menopause, only the vasomotor symptoms. They have side effects. They haven't been tested well on the cancer patients for whom they could give the most benefits. Where are we now with those, and what do we know about them, and who gets the most benefit from them? And why is it important to give people more options?
Well, that's where I was going to start. More options are always a good thing. There are people who can't take hormone therapy, and there are people who don't want to take hormone therapy. And the thought that these drugs have side effects, but hormone therapy doesn't, is just incorrect. Hormone therapy has side effects too. So all drugs have side effects or potential side effects. So we have to remember that. But I think it's a good thing that women have more options available to them. As for the breast cancer, there is some data that is coming out on the safety of fezolinetant in breast cancer patients. I think I agree it's very important to have an understanding of the benefit in different populations like breast cancer survivors, because this is a group, frankly, that would benefit the most from these non-hormonal medications. As for it only treats hot flashes, elinzanetant that was just approved last week in the United States does seem to have a primary effect on sleep as well. So it appears to be both a direct effect, meaning independent of hot flashes, and an indirect effect through hot flashes, that it improves sleep. So because it hits two receptors, the NK3 and the NK1 receptor. Fezolinetant is just the NK3 receptor. Again, effective treatment for vasomotor symptoms. We need liver test monitoring with both of them for a longer duration with fezolinetant for 9 months. But for the elinzanetant, the new one, at baseline and 3 months. So we do need to check that just out of precaution.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the other criticism is that you can't take grapefruit juice when you're on it, and I'm thinking with statins you can't have grapefruit juice either. I don't know where this came
Yeah.
from, but these are the things that are being thrown around.
I haven't heard the grapefruit juice thing, but I don't know how much grapefruit juice people are actually drinking, but I think it would probably have to be a substantial amount. But no, I haven't heard the grapefruit juice limitation.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Now, we also live in interesting times when it comes to the FDA and the removal of the black box warning on vaginal estrogen, and everybody wants that. But this time they chose a quite public um, way of discussing this, which in some ways I guess is nice because we have a democratization of information. But are there also limitations or cons to acting that way?
Well, first of all, the FDA has made no indication of what they're going to do, and I have no idea what, if anything, they plan to do. So we'll see. And if it's just vaginal estrogen or the box warning altogether, it's remains unclear. So I have a hard time commenting about that. I don't think that the decisions were made with the panel that was put together. I think it was a way to open the discussion publicly.
Good, fair enough. Back to the market, we have minnow washing. As I don't know whether you quite have it. We have M ticks on our products now. In supermarkets, you can go down and they have a tick on them that will show you products that are supposedly good for menopause, including things like toothpaste. So, I mean, it is a yes, it is a very, very large market, around about 600 billion. How do women actually then navigate that to work out what does and what doesn't work? I mean, you guys at the Menopause Society put out a fantastic position statement in 2023 on what did and what didn't work for vasomotor symptoms.
Yes.
But how does the average person really work out when they've got their social media feed, which is just full of stuff saying, buy me, buy me, buy me?
Yes, it's a scary world out there right now. And I can tell you with regard to supplements, we did a deep dive on those in 2023 and not one of them met the criteria that we were looking for to show benefit for vasomotor symptoms. So I think it's buyer beware. I think people have to be very, very, very careful. A group called Truth in Advertising recently did a deep dive in all the supplements that were being advertised for menopause and sent 100 cease and desist letters to various companies for false advertising and sent them all to the Federal Trade Commission and the FDA to look into further, because there's so much false advertising around the menopause space right now. So if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And I think women need to take a step back. I've had companies approach me saying, how can we repackage things for menopause? And basically, they're just upping the price 3 times and putting a gold label on it and calling it for menopause. And it really doesn't do anything special for menopausal women. So I think keep that in mind. And I think for those social media influencers that are showing some study in the background, if it has 20 women in it and it has no placebo control, it's not a great study, and we can't change practice. on that. And so it's important to note that the placebo effect for menopause is, especially for menopause symptoms like hot flashes, is huge. If you give someone a sugar pill and tell them it helps for hot flashes, it will reduce their symptoms by about 30%. So, for anything that we are to say is really truly effective, it has to be significantly over that. So, a lot of these studies where they're going, see, they felt better on this drug. Many people will feel better if you give them a sugar pill because they think it's going to do something for them. So they feel better. So really important to remember that the standard of evidence is often not what we're looking at in these social media posts.
Yes, I noticed something coming out in one of the newspapers the other day based on a 2012 study of 79 women on star anise curing vasomotor symptoms, and I
Probably
was
with no
thinking there's going to be
control.
a product coming.
Probably with no control. They probably had 79 women trying it and no people on placebo, and they probably said, "Do you feel better?" And they go, "Yeah, I feel better." What
Yeah,
does that
actually
mean?
they did divide them up, but even then, I mean, as you say, with a 30%
Small.
placebo effect,
Yeah.
it's tiny, and you're not going to, based on 79 people, I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of people. Um, Blood tests are the other thing that is a very burgeoning market that's growing at the moment. Get your home urine test, your home saliva test, your home blood test. Um, do any of these actually hold water? And what real, the people argue a lot about whatever, we've got to know our levels all the time. Do we really need to be knowing our levels all the time? Who needs to know and when?
So I think that's the great question is why do we need to know our levels? And I will tell you as a clinician, if someone comes into me in perimenopause, say they're 45 years old, they're starting to skip a period here and there, they're having symptoms. It is what it is. I don't need a blood level of anything to tell me what it is. And the problem is that blood levels of hormones like estradiol and FSH are so highly variable during the perimenopausal timeframe that they vary literally from day to day. So whatever level you bring me today is not what it's going to be tomorrow. And it doesn't mean I'm going to not treat your symptoms if you come to me. We're going to manage your symptoms. The other thing to know about blood levels is I don't know at what blood level any one woman will stop having a hot flash or vaginal dryness or anything else. So we're not treating to levels either. Half of the symptoms that, or maybe more than that, that you experience in perimenopause are because the levels are varying so much. So they swing higher than they ever were in their regular reproductive years because your ovaries are misfiring a little bit. Your brain is going, ovaries, not hearing from you. Where are you? And so the ovaries will pump out more eggs, more estrogen, and actually shoot your estrogen levels higher than they've ever been before. But where do you have to go from there? You fall. When you fall from such a high level, you're sweating, you're flashing, you're having migraines, the whole thing, your mood is terrible. So part of the issue is the swinging around. So checking a level during all that swinging is not going to help us figure out what's going on. Now, when could it be helpful? It could be helpful, for example, if you are under 40 and stopping your periods and you don't know why, then hormone testing might be helpful. In fact, will be helpful to figure that out. But it should be done under the care of your healthcare professional and probably not at home using blood and saliva tests.
People will often say, but what about my bones? If I don't know, how do I know that I've got enough estrogen to protect my bones? If your symptoms are controlled, can you safely say then perhaps that your bones are fine?
That's a great question. We know that the estrogen response to and bone health is pretty much linear. So lower doses even impact bone positively. It doesn't relate to symptom control, but typically, if you're on an estrogen dose peri or postmenopausally, it's going to help protect your bones.
Brilliant. All right, my last question, because I know you've got to run, is when the US sneezes, the rest of the world does catch a cold, and you've been having some difficulties recently in terms of funding and approach from the current government, which has an enormous flow on to research funding, and just at a time when we really need research funding most. How can we ensure that women get the funding for menopause research that we really need?
That's a great question, and I think this is a question for the world, and not just the US. But what we've seen in the Menopause Society, and we're so incredibly grateful, is in the last 6 months, we've received two $5 million gifts from grateful or from benefactors. One of them was anonymous, the other was from the Alex and Stephen Cohen Foundation. We are so very grateful to them. But I think this is what you're going to see. You're going to see benefactors who are women, foundations that are led by women who are interested in forwarding women's health and are able to help us move the needle forward. There is so much we still don't know about menopause and its management and the impacts on long term health that we need to keep going on this research. And if we stop funding research right now, we're going to not just lose for the next 5 years, this is going to impact the next generation of researchers because those people that we're training right now, if they don't have funding, they're going to go do something else. And we're going to lose out on a generation of researchers. So continuing this pipeline is critical. And I really thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, it is vital. It is our future health. Given the changes that happen silently around menopause that we don't pay a lot of attention to, that end up with us with worse cases, worse outcomes in heart disease and dementia and osteoporosis later down the track. We
Right.
really need to be on top of this. Yeah,
You're so right.
absolutely. Thank you so very much for joining me. And I'm sorry that I can't count between 9 and 12 and 9 and 1. Um,
You're great. Thank you so much. And thanks for having me.
my pleasure. And hopefully we shall speak again at another time.
That sounds great. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.